it. And I ain't talking my pockets, just know we ain't running out the way that we stocking.
So Dillon Brooks made some comments. We all know what he said yesterday. He said LeBron was old, and it was pretty. I thought it was pretty disrespectful, but I didn't really. My reaction to it was just being a LeBron fan. He's gonna get like what he's asking for here, because I think if we're going from his perspective through the whole thing, the type of player that Dillon Brooks is, he's just trying to get in LeBron's head. But newsflash, LeBron in the postseason, not a guy you want to get into his head. I don't think that's ever worked before in people in playoff series that have provoked the king. You saw the comments by Klay Thompson 2016. He said in that finals they were down 3-1, and then he was like, I think he got his feelings hurt. We all know what happened after that. Cavs won 3 straight, won the finals. Draymond Green said some outspoken things about him, and usually he gets him back within the course of series. Even that same series, he was ejected, kind of similar to this. But Dillon Brooks took it a step further, in my opinion, because he really the shot he took was just so like it was as if he was saying he was like better than LeBron. It was like, he said he's old, and he said that he would have liked to see him in Cleveland, and that he's not the same player he was. He was just taking all those shots, and that's I don't think he knows what he's in for, because he's called out other players before. You just don't hear about it because they're not as big, and that's his tactic. And I think when he walked into that arena, he walked in that game, he realized, wow, have I made a mistake? He's probably the most hated player in the NBA today, as we speak, in my opinion. Because nobody's happy about these comments. He was getting destroyed on ESPN, he's getting bashed on Twitter at the game, and there a conspiracy theory of mine is that he did that because the pressure was getting to him, and there's a clear shot of him just punching LeBron, in the unsportsmanlike play. When I first saw it, I thought it might be accidental. When you look at it again, that was definitely an intentional, because they weren't even like under the basket. They were he was full court pressing him. So really dirty play by Dillon Brooks. And if your teammates, the Memphis the Lakers, they got a spark. They got a spark from these comments. You don't feed a team like this that already has people that have everything to prove, other than LeBron, of course. Other than LeBron on this team, everybody on this team has something to prove. And they were like, if they're going to say this about LeBron, what does he think about us? And they locked in. They played an unbelievable first quarter, because they were pissed off. They played pissed off in the first quarter. In Memphis, if they would have came in here and they would have backed it up, I would have said, maybe he was right. But you got to put your money where your mouth is, and he did not. And the thing that scares me with his career for him is this is a contract year for Dillon Brooks. Memphis has to decide if they want to pay this guy. People have to decide if they want to pay this guy. And if I'm Memphis, if I'm Memphis, if we don't win this, if they don't win this series, there's no way I'm re-signing him, because the series kind of flipped in a way. I think after game 2, they really took a big stance and getting Ja back. But you make these comments here, and now you've lit a fire under every single person on the Lakers organization. You've lit a fire under the media, and I don't know if he can embrace that hated role like that. Like Draymond Green, when he would talk all that smack, he was still putting up like 15 to 25 points a game back then. He was a much better player back then, more polished. Dillon Brooks is like a pretty like bad player. Like if you really look at his like overall, the thing he does good is that intimidation factor. You know, he's a good can play good defense, can get in people's heads. That's what he's good at. But he's not really a scoring threat. You know, he's not. Athletically, he's not like the quickest on ball defender either. But he doesn't really have that. You know, even when Clay shouted out LeBron, you know, Clay's Clay. You know, other people that have called him out, like Paul Pierce and like other people, they're who they are. You know, they're good players like that. Dillon Brooks isn't that good. So, you know, I think it could definitely ruin his career. I mean, you go from being, you know, I think he went from being relatively unliked to now being universally hated. I didn't really hate him until this. I don't like him. I really, you know, I after this series, you know, I really don't have a lot for Memphis. You know, I like Jaren Jackson Jr., but you know, I think he's got to grow up a little bit too. Ja really explosive, but you can see it with Ja. You can see it with Ja in every step he makes. Guy is fragile. Guy is because when you're hyper athletic like that, and you can tell he relies on his athleticism for his play, 100%. And we're already seeing signs of him having injuries. And I don't know what he's like 22, 23. That is a bad like nowadays we see like LeBron, he has, you know, every time he goes down, it's kind of scary. Well, he's 38. Like when LeBron was like in his like even mid 30s to we will like when he was like turn 30 and like mid 20s, we never really saw him getting injured. His first injury came when he was like 29, and it was like a 1 week thing. Jaws already had some pretty serious conditions. So, you know, there's not a lot that I have for Memphis. You know, I think Lakers are going to win this series in 6. That's what I think it's going to be. I think we'll see if they tie it back up. But Dillon Brooks, you know, I really just think that I don't know why you make this idea. I think it's a selfish move to the team because you know when you get interviewed by the media, you know that you can't you have to go in there and you have to know you have to like pre-plan what you're going to say. Watch LeBron's interview. Watch LeBron's interview, and you can tell how he thinks about every question. You have to do it quick. He thinks about what he says before he says it. There's a moment where he's about to bash Brooks, and you can tell he's about to bash Brooks, but he doesn't. He doesn't want to feed them anything. He doesn't want to flip the fire. And it's a smart tactic by him. It shows maturity, one thing that this Memphis team just doesn't have. And they're going to gain a lot of grit from this series because they came into this. I don't know how they're the 2 seed. That was another thing. I don't know how. John Morant's obviously an unbelievable player. He had that 22 in a row, but you have Jaren Jackson as well. But other than those 2 guys, you don't really have that much of a team here. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, if you're Dillon Brooks, you better hope you win this series. Or Memphis, I don't see them re-signing him. He's going to be asking for his career could teeter really fast here. His career could teeter really fast and could get out of control. Because if they don't re-sign him and he goes to like some if he goes to like the Pistons or some bad organization, he'll become a no-name within like 2 years. So this is why you can call people out in this league, but one, you better back it up. Because if you don't back it up, if you go out like that was the worst possible response that he could have had to this. And now there's questions, and not good ones.